Breaking news from Bengals training camp on Sunday morning. With contract talks now at an impasse, the Cincinnati Bengals are reportedly listening to trade offers on defensive end Trey Hendrickson once again. These reports coming according to NFL insider Ian Rapoport. Welcome in, everybody, to a breaking news edition of Chatterbox Bengals. I'm your host, Craig Sandlin. Make sure to go ahead and give us a like, a follow, and subscribe to the channel for daily content on your favorite Cincinnati sports teams, whether that be the Bengals, Reds, Bearcats, FC Cincinnati, or anyone else. Make sure you follow Chatterbox Sports for post-game live reaction to all the breaking news. Listen, Trey Hendrickson is probably one of the Bengals' best free agent signings of my lifetime. There probably isn't much of a debate about that, if we're being honest. He's become a four-time Pro Bowler. In 2024, he led the league in sacks with 17 and a half. Along with that, he led the league in total pressures with 92. He had 46 quick pressures. But at the end of the day, Trey Hendrickson is slotted to make only $18 million in 2025. Now, this is an offseason that saw new contracts signed for defensive ends that reach heights that hadn't been seen before in the NFL. Guys like Max Crosby signed a $35.5 million a year contract. Myles Garrett went out and signed a $40 million per year contract. Milton Williams even signed a $26 million contract. Zach Allen got $25.5 million per year. So there's no question at this point that Trey Hendrickson deserves a pay raise. And reports of recent are that Hendrickson and the Bengals are in alignment on that. Some reports even say that they already have the number agreed to, whether that's $28 million that some people have said, or what I believe is likely over $30 million per year. But the reported sticking point at this point is the years. The Bengals wanting to only guarantee 1 year. Some people saying maybe they're at 2 at this point. Trey Hendrickson looking for a 3+ year contract. Trey Hendrickson is on the record. He's gone on multiple shows. He's talked about this in the media. He's looking for security for him and his family, and he has said he wants to be in Cincinnati long term. Now, how do the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson get this done? I don't know at this point. Hendrickson has been a great teammate. He's been at training camp helping with newly drafted Shemar Stewart, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. He's done everything you'd like to see him do for someone who's holding out for a new contract. He's there, he's helping, he's hands-on. He could easily be on the sidelines watching practice, but he's not. He's out there hands-on with Shemar Stewart and this defensive line, coaching them up, getting them ready for the season. But the truth of the matter is that Trey Hendrickson really provided the only pressure from this defense in 2024. Depending on which report you look at, he provided anywhere from 32 to 40% of all of the Bengals' pressures in 2024. So the question becomes, how much has the emergence of newly signed D-tackle TJ Sheldon and, of course, newly drafted defensive end Shemar Stewart played into this decision? We've seen glimpses from training camp. We've seen videos. We've seen them perform even in the preseason game week 1. Both of them look great so far. They've both been getting after the quarterback. Shemar Stewart has obviously had his own contract dispute to start with, but is now padded up and showing off exactly why the Bengals took him at number 17 overall in this year's draft. He's looked as good as anyone could have hoped at this point. He's been kicking this Bengals offensive line's butt, to be honest. Now, how much of that is because this Bengals offensive line, quite frankly, is not as good as maybe we would have hoped that they are, and how much of this is because Shemar Stewart is just that good? Only time will tell as we see them continue in NFL action. But the truth of the matter is that this Bengals defensive line looks primed to provide much more pressure and much more action to get after that quarterback than what they did in 2024. Now, obviously, one injury, one thing can change, and all of that can go out the window. But the truth of the matter is that for Trey Hendrickson, who provided 40% of the Bengals' pressures in 2024, the Bengals now have two other guys who they seemingly can rely on for pressure in 2025. Now, the Bengals were reportedly open to offers for Trey Hendrickson even before the NFL draft happened, and myself included, many were hoping that maybe the Bengals could go ahead and move Trey Hendrickson at that time. They were looking reportedly for 2 first-round draft picks. I don't think anybody really thought that was going to happen, but I think there was hope that maybe they could get a first-round draft pick and a couple other draft picks for Trey Hendrickson, and be able to really retool that defense to be able to build up and replace Trey Hendrickson's production. Now you've got Shemar Stewart, who you drafted in the first round, who's showing glimpses in the ability to be able to mimic maybe similar production. I'm not going to sit here and act like Shemar Stewart's a 17 sack a year guy like Trey Hendrickson has been for the last 2 years. But the truth of the matter is that the Bengals got nothing from anybody not named Trey Hendrickson in 2024. So they have to feel much better about where their defense is today, at least on the defensive line, compared to where they were in 2024. So the question becomes, what will it take to pry Trey Hendrickson away from the Cincinnati Bengals now? Well, Rapoport goes on to opine that Hendrickson is still going to be expensive. Likely compensation at this point is expected to be a young player that the Bengals can continue to build around, a core potentially to this defense, along with future draft picks. However, with Micah Parsons also now reportedly on the trading block or asking for a trade from Dallas, is that feasible? Would someone rather trade a young player and future draft picks for a 30-year-old Trey Hendrickson? Or would they rather trade it for a young Micah Parsons, who has shown to be, again, one of the best defensive ends in the league? Jordan Schultz is reporting that the Panthers, the Browns, and the Colts are already among teams that are showing interest. But the question becomes, will they be able to put together a package that entices the Bengals to move on from Trey Hendrickson? Of course, this news comes the day before the Bengals are set to take on the Washington Commanders in their preseason week number 2. That comes on Monday night. Shemar Stewart is reportedly expected to get plenty of reps in that one, as the first teamers are expected to get similar run to what they got in week 1. So Stewart will have an opportunity to continue to show the Bengals and Bengals fans why this team may be willing to move on from Trey Hendrickson at this time. As always, Reed Mouse and myself will be live post-game after that game against the Commanders to break it all down, and I'm sure we will be discussing Trey Hendrickson and the conversation around his impending trade yet again. Until then, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Sports. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and comment on this video. What are your thoughts? What's it going to take to get Trey Hendrickson away from the Cincinnati Bengals? What's a package look like that you would be willing to take to move Trey Hendrickson right now? If and when that trade happens, we'll be live yet again with more breakdown and analysis. Until then, this is Chatterbox Sports. Thanks, everybody. Hoo day.